So Nolan Wells' phone still hasn't had the joint forensic examination his family's attorneys say they agreed to nearly a month ago. So what's the holdup? Because this isn't just about getting into a phone. I think people are asking the wrong questions. It's about who examines it, how they examine it, and preserving the integrity of whatever evidence that they recover. So, hey, y'all, Yolanda here. And listen, I'm popping in for this legal brief in between court because how digital evidence can be just as important as what investigators actually find. So if you're following the Nolan Wells case, share this with someone else who's following it. So here's what we know. Nolan's family has his physical phone. Their attorneys say they reached an agreement with prosecutors for a joint forensic examination. But according to the family's attorneys, that still hasn't happened. Now, listen. When I say forensically examine, I don't mean that somebody unlocks the phone, picks it up, and starts scrolling. That's not what I mean. A forensic examination is specifically designed to extract and preserve available data, but also documenting how the evidence was handled and how it was recovered. So that brings us to this concept that we call chain of custody, right? Think of chain of custody as a paper trail for the evidence. Who had it? When did they have it? And what happened to it along the way, right? So that's particularly interesting here because we know that Nolan's phone wasn't in law enforcement custody from the beginning. We know that. We know that it was in somebody else's possession before it was eventually returned to the family. That does not necessarily mean that anybody did anything improper. But if this phone eventually becomes evidence in a criminal case, its history most certainly will matter. And to me, that helps explain why the family's attorneys want their experts involved in the forensic examination. It doesn't mean, y'all, that law enforcement couldn't properly examine the phone themselves. But what it does mean that the family wants a joint process. I get that. So now remember, a physical phone is a source of digital evidence. It's not the only source because I told y'all in a prior legal brief that depending on what investigators are looking for and the legal process with that, relevant information could potentially exist in a number of places. So I don't want y'all to make this leap. Don't say that the phone hasn't had because they haven't had the forensic examination, investigators have no digital evidence. We just don't know that. And investigators don't necessarily have to wait for an arrest or criminal charges to seek digital evidence through the appropriate legal process. So the real question isn't simply why hasn't someone searched Nolan's phone? It's how will it be forensically examined and who will participate? Because listen, getting into the phone isn't the goal. Recovering reliable evidence is. So if you learn something, share this legal brief with someone else who's following the Nolan Wells case and follow at Attorney Trotman and All Things Legal for You for more. And keep saying Nolan Wells' name and keep following the evidence and not speculation. And let's have the conversation.